Operates the 14-mile well gold project in the Laverton Greenstone Belt. The project consists of around about 600 square kilometers of tenement package on the west side of Lake Carey. David Nixon is the technical director of the company and has a significant depth of experience with 25 years as an exploration geologist. He joins us now. David.
Alrighty, good afternoon. I'd just like to open with a short anecdote that does have relevance. So years ago, as an explorer, I've always wanted to go to Antarctica. And I had mates working the New Zealand survey, and they were down there, and they phoned me up one day and said, "There's something you need to know." I said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, we're in Antarctica and you're not." I said, "Yeah, great. Doesn't help me." They said, "No, there's more." These guys were looking at Mount Erebus volcano. That volcano erupts a lava made of cyanide. It's a very unusual rock. But what's important about this rock is that it carries gold. So Mount Erebus erupts 80 grams of crystalline gold onto the ice every day. So you guys are probably better at numbers than me because I'm a geologist. But when you calculate that out, that's about 1,000 ounces a year times 1.3 million years that volcano's been there. That's a significant amount of gold. But the key message to take home is those blokes were Antarctica and I wasn't, all right? Okay. Key thing here is mineral exploration is a risky business. Right, so far this year, we've completed a whole bunch of work at 14 Mile Well. We started at a standing start and went straight to a sprint. So we've currently got 2 diamond rigs on site. We've got an air core rig showing up shortly after doing an earlier air core program. So we're going flat out. So far, we've completed the diamond drilling at Deep Well, and we've also done an air core program across the top of that. So we're looking to try and broaden up the alteration shell that we found there. We've also found a cyanide associated with that. And the cyanide, same as Mount Erebus, is important because it can carry gold. We've completed the diamond drilling at TOTK. We're following up some high-grade rock chip values there in quartz vein. Similarly, we drilled down underneath that and we found a cyanide associated with a shear zone. So again, the cyanide has the potential to carry gold. Thirdly, we've moved the rigs across to another prospect called Danjo. We've started drilling there. And we've already identified a lamprifier, which is part of the cyanide family. So another excellent outcome for us. And finally, on the back of that, we've completed a tenement-wide soil sampling campaign using the CSIRO ultrafine fraction technology. And that is already delivering new targets for us in areas that we wouldn't have thought to go before. So it's an excellent outcome. Rightio, key thing for us is we're located halfway between Leonora and Laverton. And that's a pretty interesting piece of ground geologically. This puts us firmly within the Canalpi terrain, but within the Laverton district. And this all sits within, the Yilgarn Craton and the Eastern Goldfields, right? This is a very prodigious area for producing gold. So it's an excellent address. And just so you can see that, we're smack bang next to some fairly large producers. We are surrounded by a whole bunch of hungry mills. That's an excellent place to be. Prospective ground, hungry mills. Zooming in further, this is our project area. It's about 20 kilometres across east-west, 40 k's north-south. We've got the bitumen road running between Leonora and Laverton, runs through the north end of our project. So access is really easy. And the Goldfields gas pipeline goes right through the top there near the road as well. The key thing here is we have 7 main target areas. And these are the places where we're focusing our work. At the start of the year, we started with 6 areas. And on the back of our soil sampling campaign, we found that we had a 7th area that needed our attention. What we'll do is we'll have a look at some of the key exploration models that are driving us. So specifically in the Laverton district and also in the Abitibi and other greenstone belts around the world, there's a really important association. It's consistent association between cyanide intrusions and gold. And that can be genetic, so it actually forms the gold deposits, or it can just be spatial. They're sitting right next to them. Right? This is a critical thing. These cyanides really matter in and around Laverton. There's a lot of large deposits here that are hosted in or right next to these rocks. So step one for any exploration campaign here is to find those rocks first. Yep. So the images we have here, just so you get familiar, on the left, my right, is an example of a cyanide. These rocks are generally pink because they're rich in potassium. So it's potassium feldspar that gives it that color. The rock's also very low in quartz, all right? And that makes it easier for us to identify them. The triangle diagram is how geologists break down the universe and how we identify these rocks. So at the top of the triangle is 100% quartz, and at the bottom of the triangle where cyanides live, there's pretty much no quartz at all. So it makes it easy for us to identify these things. And pushing them across the other side of the diagram there is because it's high in potassium or alkali metals, right? And thirdly, over this side here is the expiration model. This was developed by Francois Robert, 2001. That's fairly straightforward. We formed the mafic pile, so those greeny grey rocks there. These are then subjected to some deformation. You start to form the shear zone. These shear zones travel down to depth, potentially tapping the mantle. The mantle contains more gold than crustal rocks. So if you can tap something that has a higher concentration, you've got a better chance of dropping that gold out when it gets up higher, right? Cyanides are formed at great depth in a very unusual magma. They exploit these existing shear zones and they come rocketing up towards surface. So in this example here, we've had an erosional event. So you've had a mountain building event, an erosion event at the top of the mafics at the same time that the cyanides are coming up. And they can breach the surface and form Mount Erebus volcanoes, or not. They can get trapped underneath and form porphyry bodies, right? Either way, they're there at or near that unconformity. You then form a series of coarse clastic sediments that sit on top. And these are conglomerates. They're very distinctive. They're easy to identify. The examples in Canada are called the Timiskaming sequence, or around Kalgoorlie, it's the Black Flag sequence, right? So we see conglomerates in and around our area. So most notably around the Wallaby deposit, we have the Wallaby conglomerate, right? It's nice, easy to identify. So there's 4 pillars that help hold up our cyanide model. So these are the key things that help drive the prospectivity of a cyanide. You know, why are they good? So first up, we look for dilation. So these almighty structures, the shears that tap to great depth, they tap the cyanide magmas. But these things can also tap the gold-bearing fluids, right? So the cyanides and the gold-bearing fluids can rise to points of dilation. So where these faults open up, low pressure zones. And this is where you can crystallize one of these cyanides and form the intrusive body, and then potentially drop out the gold with it. The second one is the contacts of that intrusion. So these contacts, they're hard chemical boundaries and physical boundaries. And these things get exploited by hydrothermal fluids as the body cools. So another unusual property of cyanides is they have massive thermal expansion coefficients. So when you run that in reverse, as they cool, they contract a lot. And as they contract, they pull away from the surrounding rock, creating space, right? That makes plumbing that lets the fluids travel. The third one's the aureole. So as the cyanide intrudes, it modifies the rock around it because it's containing a lot of heat coming out of that body. And that heat cooks up these rocks and it changes the mineral composition. And you can modify these rocks and form minerals like magnetite. And magnetite is extremely reactive when it hits the gold-bearing fluids. So this can help drop out gold really efficiently for us. And the final one is dilation. Competency, my mistake. So these bodies are quite brittle. They're very rigid, and they sit in amongst a whole bunch of rocks around them that are really quite ductile. So essentially what you've got is a block of glass. sitting in a sea of toothpaste. So when you deform that, the block of glass shatters, and that lets fluids travel through that body and potentially drop out the gold, right? So that's our 4 pillars. Now we'll just look at the targets that we have so far that we've been testing this year. So Claypan, this is in the northern end of our tenement package. This has been really a bit of an enigma for us, but recent field work has helped pull it together, and now it's in a drillable position. What we had was a number of structural targets in this area, and they were supported by geophysical anomalies, so both magnetic and gravity. But the key thing we found once we were on the ground is the rocks there were displaying really intense alteration. This alteration was in the form of white mica, carbonate, and we're seeing pseudomorphs after sulfides. And those pseudomorphs, we're interpreting those as arsenopyrite based on their very distinctive shapes. They also contain elevated arsenic, which is a bit of a giveaway. Yeah. But the key thing we found was in the radiometric anomaly. It has extremely high potassium, and potassium is known to be a key alteration part linked to the potassium-rich cyanides. So we have rocks here, and those rocks are conglomerates. The rocks are altered with high potassium. There's a weak magnetite anomaly around the outside, and we are seeing sulfides at surface. So previously this area was trenched by nickel explorers looking for nickel, and they didn't find any. But we come in there and we think, or we're interpreting, that underneath this hill, we're seeing evidence of leakage, hydrothermal fluids getting out off of a cyanide body. So the next step for us is to drill it. Deep well is another one of our targets. We've drilled a fairly robust fence of holes across the top of it. We thought it was a granite, and it's come back as a monzonite. Now, monzonite is an unusual intrusive that's part of the cyanide family. What we're seeing here is the early historic results that we were following up. So they were very encouraging. I think it was 5 meters at 3 grams. We saw the monzonite, but deeper down, we also saw a cyanide, and that cyanide was sitting right in against the shear zone. So it's either exploiting the shear zone and coming up with it, or it's come up next to it. Either way, the cyanite's there, and we're hopeful that we will see gold when the assays come in. This target is North 1. It's quite a good circular magnetic anomaly. It's fairly straightforward. And the concept here is that we have a cyanide body underneath, and that's forming a magnetite aureole. So it's a simple test, walk up and drill it. TOTK, similar to deep well, we put a robust fence of holes across the top. We found a fairly well-established hydrothermal cell, but also we found cyanide jammed inside of those shear zones. So again, another excellent sign. Early assays have started coming in, and those assays are carrying low-level gold. So at the top there, the top of hole 12. So as we get further results coming in, we'll get to see whether that manifests into something more meaningful. But that's where it is at the moment. So fingers crossed. The rig is currently moved over to Danjo. And on Danjo, we are following up high-grade rock chips on a quartz vein. So early indications is we have quite significant alteration underneath that quartz vein. So there's sulfide, white mica, quartz veining with tourmaline. And this is a really good classic assemblage for orogenic gold. The best thing is, though, we've also got the lamprifier, and the lamprifier is an associated rock with the cyanides. Beverley is another target we've worked up, and it's linked with the ultrafine soils campaign. We've got a fairly coherent gold anomaly, and it's coincident with geophysical targets and structural targets. So this one, we're hoping to drill this one before Christmas, at least get a look at it so we can keep going on it in the new year. So in the Gaia target area, we were able to get a number of soil anomalies from the ultrafine campaign. So this one here is the East Well Anomaly. It was quite large. It's 4 kilometres long. The next step for us there is to wait for the remaining samples. So not all the samples are returned for this one. So this one will improve better than it is at the moment. But as it stands, it's drillable. It's a nice, easy one, right? So it's not just gold, it's multi-elements as well. It's supported by, this one, I think it's tungsten and tellurium and moly. So it's actually really good. That's a similar signature than what you see in and around Fimiston and Kanowna Belle. This one's the Gaia soil anomaly. It sits in the northern end of Gaia. Similarly, it's 3 kilometres long, and that has another signature that's not unusual for Archean systems. Finally, we have the Breakaway soil anomaly. This is the new one down in the monument area. That one's quite large. It's 5 kilometres long. Key thing with this area, it has never seen a drill hole. So this is a granite-dominated area. And as is usual in Western Australia, geologists avoid granites, and at your peril. There's certainly plenty of things to find in the granites. That's the team on deck. And that's just to reiterate the work that we have completed this year. And I feel that we have excellent future prospects. Thank you.
Green Technology Metals is a North American-focused lithium developer and owner of the emerging Ontario Lithium Project in Canada. Green Tech seeks to harness abundant local hydropower to deliver a world-class sustainable lithium business. We welcome Green Technology's Chief Executive Officer, Luke Cox. Welcome along, Luke.
Oh, thank you. All right. Oh, here we go. Right. If you think about green technology metals, just think lithium and Canada. So as you can see, we've got 3 projects: Seymour, Root, and Weezer. Now they're all in striking distance of Thunder Bay. So Thunder Bay is an old paper mill industry. They're looking to revamp that place since the paper industry crashed. And they're very keen to put a hydroxide plant right there. So if you can imagine, we've got 3 lithium projects on the doorstep, convert it into a concentrate, get that concentrate down to Thunder Bay, get it converted to a hydroxide, and then just come to this one. You have this North American thematic. So this is something that's emerging right now. So you've got all the giga plants building up in North America. You've also got the hydroxide plants. Now, this is critical to locking up supply in that area. So I'll just go back. So as you can see, Seymour, that's our #1 asset. We've got 4.8 million tonnes. Now we've got an exploration target on there of 22 to 26 million tonnes. At Root, there's a historical estimate on there. So we can't report that yet until we do more drilling, but we do have an exploration target, and also at Weezer. So in our team, John Young, chairman. So John Young was the founder of Pilbara Minerals. So significant experience in the lithium space. Cameron Henry. So he founded Primero. They build lithium processing plants. You got myself, experience in lithium also. So I used to be the mine manager up at Wodgina. So I've got the experience of mining this stuff out. And then one big ticket item here in our team is Pat Murphy. So he's a director at AMCI. They fund large mining projects. And at the moment, they're delving into the EV space. So that's a big movement for us. Also got Rob Longley. He's the MD of ADV. Now I've got guys on the ground. So best in class, which is our team. Strong ESG credentials. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So what we're talking about there is, well, what makes us different? What makes us green? Well, if you're looking at power in Ontario, it's hydropower. So hydropower costs you about 4 cents per kilowatt hour. It's completely green. And if you're a big power consumer, that's where you want to be. We've got the strategic located lithium projects right on the doorstep of the United States, and we're looking to fast track all of those deposits. So as we say, Biden knocking on the door of Canada saying, look, we need to lock up the lithium supply and critical minerals. So there's been big movements, especially in Ontario and Quebec, of looking at all of these lithium assets and proving them up. So one thing we've done, we said, okay, well, we've got the deposits. We can concentrate them to SC6. But now we need to build the hydroxide plants. We spoke to Thunder Bay. They came back pretty quickly, and they've actually set up a department to get mining readiness and also support the mining sector. We said, well, where would we put a hydroxide plant? And they came back with 50 locations. They said, just choose one of these. They're all up for grabs and they're yours. Also, the federal government, they're pushing very hard to not miss out on this EV movement in North America. They want to be the major provider of hydroxide and carbonate. So they're pushing very hard as well. Also, they're actually speaking to our team on the ground. So Matt Herbert's there right now, speaking to the federal government. They said, well, what do you do in Australia? Why are you doing so well with the lithium side? He goes, well, what we do, we give priority status to lithium producers. So they're going away right now. They're speaking to the federal government and see if we can get priority status for some of our deposits. Right. So as we said, we've got access to this hydropower, which is going to be very advantageous to anyone. So probably just to mention with that, if you can imagine you're in Australia, you're up in the Pilbara, you mine spodumene like in Wodgina, you whack it on a track, it goes up to the port, you're burning diesel, you then put it on a boat, you send it to China, you're burning more diesel, it then goes up the river, you're burning more diesel, it goes into a conversion plant where they burn coal, you're burning more carbon and producing that. That carbon footprint is massive. So I reckon over time, what you'll see is a premium, not only for lithium, but a premium for green lithium with a very low carbon footprint, almost to a certain extent where there'll be carbon credits. It's almost like when you look at a fridge and it says on the fridge, it says, how much energy does this fridge consume? But it'll be the same for cars. How much carbon was burnt or created in this lithium battery? So by having a clean lithium, it'll be very advantageous to the downside suppliers. And as I say, Biden, he's fully backed it. He's looking at his allies and he's looking at Canada. He wants Canada to supply lithium and lithium concentrates. So let's move on to the project. So Seymour was our primary project. We started off with a blank canvas. We had some geological mapping. We've located greenstone belts. So that was 1950. 2 large outcrops of pegmatites were found, lithium bearing spodumene. That was by a prospector, Nelson Albury. That was then converted to a mineral resource, JORC, 4.8 million tonnes at 1.25. Subsequent to that, all these other pegmatites were found. Right, when you look at this map, it just looks like a blur of red dots. All of those red dots are pegmatites. Well, what's controlling this? We just had no idea. We need more information. So 2 weeks ago, we did a geophysical survey over the area, and this happened. All those pegmatites are located coincidental to these magnetic highs, all of them. So now I've got my structural control for mineralization. So I just jump there. So I sent the team out this week. We went over to Pi. We sampled that area. That came back at over 4%. We then drove back. We went to Central Albury, another area. We got 3% there. So as you can see, these things are building pretty quickly. And there's some pictures. These aren't just small outcrops. These are 50 meters wide. North Albury, massive. Pi, massive. And you see the picture on this side. The crystal size, spodumene crystal size is massive. We're not talking about small crystals. The bigger the crystal, the easier they are to comminute and get them out as a concentrate. South Albury, once again, there's cliff faces of spodumene pegmatite sticking out of the ground. Now, I looked at this, and when I was at Wodgina, I was like, God, this looks very similar to the exposures I saw at surface. Pilgangoora, and went down to green bushes. They're very small exposures, just like what we're seeing here. But under the ground, these things open up. They pinch and swell, they bifurcate. You can see green bushes. The surface expression at the top back in the day was tiny, just like what we saw at Seymour. Wodgina, absolutely the same, and Pilgangoora. So what have we done? We've done a fair bit of work since our IPO, which was just last month. All the geological mapping starting. We've done geochemistry with Dr. Nigel Brand. We've built the mineral resources. Aerial photography has been done. The LiDAR's been done. Tilt magnetics, radiometrics, VLF, Sentinel, remote sponsing, ground penetrating radar. So all that's been crunched right now to define our targets. So where we're at, okay, essentially all this work's been done. We've got a dozer on site right now, clearing drill pads and access into the area. Drill rigs are like buses. First of all, we have no drill rigs, and then 2 turn up. So we now have two drill rigs mobilizing to site to drill out Seymour. All right, so Seymour's where all the action is at the moment, but we always have these other deposits. We've got Root. So we've got an exploration target on there of 20 to 24 million tons. We remodeled this from all the historical data, and that target is highly achievable. I'm not going to touch this, it keeps on jumping. Also at Root, we have other targets, Morrison, the Root Prospects, and Root Bay. Now, all of these, there's nearly 7 Ks of strike. Sorry about this, it keeps on jumping without me touching it. We have 7 Ks of strike at Root, and that's our target number 2. And then Weezer. So once again, pegmatites at surface, they're all sitting above the 1% and getting some good grades as well. I can see there down in South Weezer, 6%. So really for us, it's drilling this out. It's producing some significant targets for us. So action plan, drill out. Whilst we're doing that, what we do need to do is all the long lead items. So we're speaking with the mines department right now. With that, we're going in for our PEA and we're doing our project description. So what that means, that starts the clock ticking to say that we're serious, we're going to go into production with what we got. And they realize we're still in the resource development phase. They allow us to change our boundaries as the resource builds. But what it does do, it actually it enables us to close down that time gap between exploration and mining. So yeah, once again, best in class, strong ESG credentials with the hydropower, lithium projects in Ontario, they're pro mining. And yeah, we're just going to fast track these deposits. So yeah, thank you.
Bulletin Resources has a growing portfolio of gold projects in the Yilgarn province and a lithium pegmatite project near Ravensthorpe here in Western Australia. To tell the Bulletin story, we welcome Bulletin Resources Chief Geologist Mark Czar.
Your button's not buttoning. Sorry about that. Bulletin has a ticker code of BNR. We're a well-funded explorer in Western Australia. Currently have well-funded with cash shares and receivables of about $12 million and a current market cap of about $20 million. The board's well invested in the company with 25% of the capital, and the top 20 shareholders own approximately 50%. We're very active in Western Australia. We've got gold, nickel, and now a new lithium project. And this morning released some first results from our lithium project, which I'd love to talk to you about. Ravensthorpe Lithium Project, we picked up last year. Since then, we've finally got it granted early this year, and we've got our environmentals approved to start working on it. It's only 12 kilometres from Mount Catherine lithium mine. So it used to be called Galaxy. Orocobre brought it over early this year. We're along strike of Mount Catherine and we've got the same geology. Previous work in the area has seen, we knew there were pegmatites on the ground, but exploration stopped fairly early in the piece, mainly because of the low lithium price of a few years ago. We just returned from the field and we've seen spodumene and lithium and lepidolite, on the ground. And we're pretty keen to get this project going. Just as a bit of background to it, we've had a look at the previous data. There's two main pegmatite trends. The Eastern pegmatite trend, where historical work said there was spodumene, and the Western pegmatite trend, it had a bit more lepidolite in it and was the main focus for the previous explorers. We're focusing on the spodumene side of things as Mount Catherine's just down the road. Went to the field a couple of weeks ago, as I said, took some field mapping. It's all out on just surface mapping just now. We picked up 37 samples of various lithium minerals, including wall rock samples. We asked the lab to be very kind to us and put out a few samples for us in a rush so we could get these out to you today. And we've seen some samples that report that we've seen spodumite in the ground. So the 6.5% is indicative of spodumene mineralization, and the 2.5% are also indicative of spodumene and lepidolite samples, although they're a bit more weathered. The rest of the samples are still at the lab, and I'm much like everybody else having to wait my turn. But while we're doing that, we're still going to continue our work. Just a few pictures of what we're seeing on the ground to get a picture of where we're at. The deep purple pegmatite is up the northern end of the tenement. It's on the tenement boundary, but fortunately for us, it dips into our ground to the west. This is where we saw our biggest spodumene samples. They're quite coarse, up to 20 to 30 centimetres, these spodumene sizes. And like the previous speaker said, coarseness is great for recoveries further down the track. We also saw lepidolite in this area as well. The creek pegmatite is about 200 metres further south. As the name suggests, it's in a creek. It's very heavily weathered here. And we do see spodumene. This is out of the 4 samples. This is the 4th sample here. We only saw 0.16% lithium in here. But we're encouraged because we're seeing spodumene. Lithium is a very mobile element, and in weathering, it does move out of the rock quite easily. So at depth, we're expecting to see higher grades, provided we've still got the spodumene there. What we're calling the big pegmatite is a new pegmatite find 2 kilometres to the south. It's quite an extensive pegmatite field in this area. The big pegmatite basically follows the line of a hill. We've seen the wall, what we call the wall rocks of a pegmatite. So we actually don't see the main lithium core in the side expression of the pegmatite belt itself. So we're not expecting to see lithium in these rocks when we get the results back. But what we are looking for is indicated geochemistry. And one of the things we did see in our field trip out there was coarse tourmaline crystals. And for the geos in the room, coarse tourmaline is great because it means there's been lots of boron in the area. And if there's been lots of boron, there's been lots of fluid movement. So we've got a fair chance of seeing some good fractionization or some lithium development at depth. So we're waiting for our samples to come back, but we're not standing still. We're going to continue mapping and just outline these pegmatites to see how big they are. Size as well as grade is important to later economics. We're going to wait till our assays come back and we'll confirm the geochemistries to see whether they're fertile or not. And then once we've done that, we're going to start our environmental works for drilling and hopefully get drilling as soon as we can. Our other main project is Lake Rebecca. Lake Rebecca has been a great project for us over the last 2 years. It lies 150 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie, and it's in its known gold-bearing belt, the Canopy terrain, which to the north has large mines like Granny Smith and Wallaby, and to the south in the area we are, more recent finds such as Apollo Consolidated's Rebecca deposit and Breakaway Resources Lake Roe deposit. Our boundary is right on the border of Apollo Consolidated's resources, and if you're not aware, they're subject to a $182 billion takeover by Ramelius Resources, which has been quite good for our little bank balance. The Rebecca gold trend that we have, and that Apollo has, extends into our ground. It's typified by wide gold zones and higher grade gold zones in the middle of them. Earlier this year, we sold a 400-metre strip of ground just north of the Apollo optimised pit in here. We sold that ground to Apollo after we drilled in there last year. But since then, this year, we've been drilling further north along trend. And the results we're seeing are very similar to the ground we just sold. So we're still seeing higher grades of 2 meters at 5 grams, 1 meter at 11 grams, 2 meters at 2, and wider intercepts of 11 at 1 gram. And we're also noticing in this year's work that we've got multiple gold trends to test, just like Apollo sees to the south. This slide is a zoom out of the previous slide. So where we were looking before was just in the bottom right-hand corner. We've zoomed out to about a 10-kilometre scale here. We're fortunate that we've got a large deposit just on our boundary, and we're using that deposit as a model for our geological targeting. We've got the same geology as what Apollo Resources has. We did 2 large-scale air core programs during the year, and we found 2 significant trends of gold mineralisation in the weathered rocks at surface. There's a 2-kilometre trend just to the immediate east of where Rebecca is, and further north, we've got a larger 7-kilometre trend. And the grades we're seeing when we drill that is very similar to what Rebecca was in historical works when it was first found back in the 1990s. 8 meters at 0.5 gram, 2 meters at 2.7. So we're really encouraged to see what we're seeing is pretty much what Rebecca was seeing back in the early days. This work is under lake and it is undercover. Earlier this year, we applied to the Department of Mines for an exploration incentive scheme, and we were successful for next year's drilling round. So we've got work to do next year and some funding to help us along the way. I'm zooming out again, keeping with the theme of zooming out. This is the whole project area for us. It's a large area, 600 square kilometres. We've got over 40 targets identified in work, and we're progressively building a pipeline of exploration programs. So we're not just working just around the clear Rebecca area, we're also extending the rest of the work. We've recently just completed some soil sampling further south, just to keep the programs keeping along the way. We've also picked up some ground to the immediate west of Apollo's ground there, the western trend. Those are on a structural feature that currently already have known nickel and gold prospects out there. So the last zoom out slide before I change focus a bit. So this, we also have earlier last year, we picked up the Chifley project. The Chifley project is to the very south of this map. Oh, sorry. Just down in here. Chifley's 50 kilometres south of Lake Rebecca. It's just 20 kilometres along strike from Breakaway Resources Lake Rowe deposit, and it sits on the same clay pane fault structure as Lake Rowe. This part of the Canopy Belt really hasn't been touched. We're starting from scratch down here. It's all undercover. There's been no exploration work done to date. We targeted the area basically based on our geological mapping from further north, looking at geophysical targets and their relationship to the existing gold deposits. So just zooming in on the tenement, we did some geophysical gravity and magnetic high mapping. We've interpreted some greenstone belts there on the contact of a granite. And we've also seen in the magnetics complex folding, just like we see at Rebecca and just like Breakaway Resources sees there. We've just finished a soil sampling program. I'd love to give you the results, but they're still in the lab. Hopefully there'll be plenty of news coming up with results coming out. Further north of Laverton, we have the Duketon North project. It sits 30 kilometres north of Moolart Well gold mine by Regis Resources and 30 kilometres south of a 500,000 tonne nickel deposit. It's newly granted to us. There's been some surface work done in the area, including 4 metres of 0.75 with elevated cobalt, to encourage us that there is some mineralisation in the ultramafics there. And we're also seeing some platinum group elements in the surface sampling. Other features that are important for us are we're seeing overlying EM conductors with magnetic highs, which have yet to be tested. So we've got plenty of work in front of us, even up this part of the world. And as well as these projects, we're fairly active picking up new tenements in the area. And I'll just quickly touch on those. Powder Sill Complex is 30 kilometres west of Kalgoorlie. It's just along strike on the Whitefall mine in the Powder Sill Complex itself and near the Mungari Mill. Mount Jewel sits 60 kilometres north of Kalgoorlie on a greenstone belt. We've got the Scotia and Carboy nickel mines east and west of us. Mount Farmer, which has been getting a bit of news in the local circuits these days. We picked up a tenement there that surrounds Eldoro's niobium, tantalum, lithium and a bit of rubidium project. And it's also got extensions to the Dalgaranga gold mine. And out at Warburton there, 100 kilometres west of Neo-Babel, we've picked up some areas of ground that's got some historic copper workings. So these are all projects that we're looking forward to progressively bringing forward, as well as what we have in front of us just now. So that's a snapshot of where we're at. We're really building, we've got some good assets, got strong cash balance to advance those projects, and we are advancing those projects actively. We specifically target projects that are near mines or near existing resources, just for the synergies involved in that. We've shown that we can add value to what we have in the area, build our portfolio. And we're targeting basic metals, or what we consider important metals for us: gold, lithium, and nickel. And we're always seeking new opportunities. At our booth just outside there, I've got some nice samples from Ravensthorpe there with some nice spodumene crystals there. So you're welcome to come and have a look with us and have a chat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you much, Mark. We welcome Turaco Gold MD, Justin Tremain, to the conference. Turaco are exploring for gold in Côte d'Ivoire and have a combined landholding of 8,350 square kilometers, giving Turaco the largest exploration position in Côte d'Ivoire. Turaco is how you pronounce it. It's a local bird of Côte d'Ivoire. Meanwhile, we welcome a local bird of WA, Justin Tweety Bird Tremain.
Thanks, Jerry, and thanks for the opportunity to present Turaco today. Turaco is, as you said, a gold explorer in Côte d'Ivoire. It's a fairly new company and has been transformed over the last year with the acquisition of a portfolio of gold exploration projects in Côte d'Ivoire that we completed in August. The team has a significant success in Côte d'Ivoire with previous companies, and that same team joined this company as part of this acquisition of this large portfolio of ground in Côte d'Ivoire. It actually makes us the largest landholder in Côte d'Ivoire, with over 8,000 square kilometres of tenure on the Birimian Greenstone Belt, which are, in our view, the best place to find gold deposits in the world. Our focus is on northern Côte d'Ivoire, where we have 3 core projects, and 2 of those we've made gold discoveries on, which I'll touch on. And the third, the Tongan project, is a very large regional exploration play. And then in central Côte d'Ivoire, our 4th core project, where we believe we're on the emerging third discovery for the company, which I'll touch on. As I said, the board has significant experience with junior companies and adding shareholder value. It's essentially the same team that previously ran a company called Expiration Resources, which was also in Côte d'Ivoire. And that company, we acquired a early stage exploration project for about $3 million. Within 18 months, we'd made a discovery, drilled out a resource, and got taken over by Perseus for about $80 million. So the chairman, John Fitzgerald, also sits on the board of Northern Star as a non-executive director and was one of the original directors of Northern Star. Alan Campbell, another director, actually led a company called Papillon Resources, which discovered the world-class Fekola deposit in West Africa in Mali, which is one of the most significant discoveries in the last 15 years in West Africa. And Bruce Morit is a head of exploration at Resolute and represents our biggest shareholder, Resolute, who has a 16% shareholding in the company, and the company who we acquired most of these projects off. Share prices performed well on the back of the acquisition of these projects and then initial drilling results. And we just recently, last week, completed a significant capital raising of about $10 million. So we're now very well funded with just over $15 million in the bank. We're very aggressive explorers. I know a lot of people say that, but if you look at our past track record with Exor, we completed over 100,000 metres of drilling within 15 months. In the first quarter of having this project, we've already completed 15,000 metres of drilling with a lot of results to come. And that drilling rate will continue given we have no shortage of discoveries and resources to drill out here. As part of that capital raising, we also welcomed onto our register several new North American well-known institutional investors who are very well-versed in West African gold exploration. Just quickly touching on Côte d'Ivoire, we think it is the best place in West Africa to be exploring, and we think West Africa is one of the best places in the world to be discovering world-class deposits. In Côte d'Ivoire, there's now 6 operating gold mines. In the last 12 months, there's been 3 new gold mines permitted, which are now under development. And there's several new discoveries which are at feasibility stage, including one of which this team discovered at Exor Resources. The infrastructure is fantastic. It's been one of the most developed countries in West Africa. And most importantly, it has most of a majority of the Birimian greenstone belt. So about 35% of the Birimian greenstone belt in West Africa is located in Cote d'Ivoire, yet it's only delivered about 5% of the ounces. And that's because it just hasn't had the exploration focus that the countries such as Mali, Burkina Faso, and Ghana have had. But that's certainly changing. And I think you'll see several new discoveries in Cote d'Ivoire in the coming years. So here's a map of our tenure. It's, as I said, very extensive, but our focus is on northern Cote d'Ivoire, where we have the Bundy Ali Project. We have a 90% interest in that and have made a discovery where we're drilling at. And the Furki Project, which we also have 90% interest in, and also have a gold discovery there. And then the Tonga North Project, which sits in between those projects, which is an earlier stage exploration project for us. And then in central Cote d'Ivoire, the Ibernia Project, where we've just completed some auger drilling following some geochemical sampling. And we believe we're on the cusp of a major discovery there. So it's focusing on the northern projects, which is really why we acquired these projects in the first place, the Bundy Ali Project in particular. So the Bundy Ali Project sits on the Syama Bundy Ali greenstone belt that crosses the border from Mali into Cote d'Ivoire. In Mali, that's delivered world-class deposits such as Marilla, Syama, plus 10 million ounce deposits. In Cote d'Ivoire, it hasn't had significant exploration. What exploration has been done on this belt has been Perseus, who discovered and developed the Sissingi project up on the border, Exor with the Antoinette discovery, which is our same team. Then this Bundy Ali project, where we have a discovery, which I'll show you. And then to the south of us, a company called Montage that has a now 4 million ounce Coney discovery. So anyone who's done exploration on this belt has made a significant discovery. We sit where the Bundy Ali belt joins what's called the Senefo greenstone belt that comes also in from Burkina Faso and hosts the Tongan operation of Barrick, which is the biggest operation in Cote d'Ivoire at the moment. So being on the junction of two major regional structures which have proven potential is obviously a great place to be. And our Tongan North project there, you can see, covers the greenstone belt between Tongan and up to the border, and then Furki out to the east there. So on this Bundy Ali project, covers two permits, but our focus is on the southern permit, where I said we had 90% interest. So geochemistry over this whole permit has defined several anomalies, but the most significant one was this 9-bow anomaly that you can see on the eastern boundary of the permit. That northern 9-bow anomaly extends for 6 kilometres in strike from south to north, and in fact, again, appears a few kilometres to the south at an area called 9-bow South. And the area in between, the gap in there, is just masked by some cover, and so you don't get the geochemical signature that you do at the 9-bow main anomaly and 9-bow South anomaly. So the area of drilling has been focused on this large 6-kilometre anomaly at 9-bow. And to date, just that little white inset box there is the only area that's been subject to drilling, which is about the southern 1.5 kilometres of this 6-kilometre anomaly. And these are the results that you can see over that 1.5 kilometres of strike. So if we just... So all of this drilling here, well, 90% of that drilling you see here is in the top 50 metres. And we have several 50 gram metre to 100 gram metre intercepts, such as 20 metres at 10 grams from 38 metres, 30 metres at 8, 20 at 2, and so forth. So exceptional results, very consistent grade from section to section along that 1 kilometre of strike. There has been a handful of holes which have been extended beneath the oxide into the fresh to test for the continuation of this gold mineralisation into the fresh rock. And importantly, that returned very high-grade results, such as 9 metres at 8 grams in fresh primary mineralisation, which demonstrate that not only do we have a very significant oxide deposit, but the mineralisation extends into the fresh rock. So we have an RC rig that's drilled. We've already drilled about 3,500 metres of drilling there. We've only put out about results of the first 1,000 metres here, given we only completed this acquisition a few months ago. And so we've got more results to come there. And the plan is to continue to drill here and drill out a resource in the first quarter, second quarter of next year. So there'll be ongoing air core, RC and diamond drilling here, and we just won't stop drilling, and we'll continue to grow this, this significant discovery. It's just flicking around a bit. But as I said, that discovery represents only a fraction of the anomaly, and those little pink dots there represent about 20% of the anomaly, and that's that yellow shaded area. So we have a second rig, an air core rig, that's drilling traverses of drill holes just in the top, in the oxide, along the rest of that 4 kilometres to the north there of that anomaly there. And we're already getting very encouraging results, such as 16 meters at 3 grams from surface there. So this is a major discovery in our view, and we'll have lots of news flow to come from this. Then, as I said, a second project for the company, which has sort of come out of nowhere and is an emerging discovery, is this Ibernia project in central Cote d'Ivoire. Covers 2 granted permits. These were applications 12 months ago when we got granted. We did some soil geochemistry, which defined, very significant large-scale soil anomalies. And then we've been systematically exploring those anomalies with auger drilling and now RC drilling. And on the eastern permit, the Satama prospect, we call it, we had a soil anomaly there that extended for 4 kilometres of strike. We auger drilled that, and we got over 2.5 kilometres plus 1 gram in auger. Now, auger is just 6 to 8 metre vertical holes, just really looking to narrow down our soil anomaly to give us a drill target. We're really looking for 0.1, 0.2 grams would be a great auger result. So to be getting 8 metres at 1.8 grams, 5 metres at 2, and every line being plus 1 gram in auger, up to 9 metres at 4.5 grams. These are spectacular auger results. And really just blew us away given these results. So we've actually put an RC rig on that now and have been drilling this auger discovery with the maiden RC drilling over the last couple of weeks. And that will run up until Christmas and hopefully report our first RC results from Satama in January there. And hopefully they'll back up those auger results, and this will be a big discovery for the company. And then, as I said, there's 2 permits here. The western permit, we'd also done geochemistry over that, defined other soil anomalies here, which we call the Buaki North anomalies, but no exploration on this prior to us. These are very high tenor soil anomalies, up to 19 grams per tonne in soils, and very extensive, of over 1 to 2 kilometres in strike length in each of those 3 discrete anomalies. We've now infilled the gap in between there and hope to report those results soon, and we wouldn't be surprised if this just forms one very large soil anomaly. And in addition to that, we've done auger drilling over these anomalies now, about 3,000 metres of auger, which we'll be reporting over the next couple of weeks. And then we have 2 other projects, the Iceni Gold project, which we haven't commenced work on this yet, but this will be for early next year. There's we have a 90% interest in this permit. There was previous work done by a company called Turaco Gold, an unlisted company that defined an 18-kilometre long structure with anomalous geochemistry along it. They did some reconnaissance, 1 phase of reconnaissance drilling, and got onto a discovery at what we call Warigi South there. Just 18 diamond holes were drilled, and you can see the results from those 18 diamond holes. So typically 20 to 50 metre wide zones at 2 to 5 grams per tonne there, and no follow-up work. Toro was then acquired by Resolute about 2 years ago, and there's been no follow-up work. So we plan to commence drilling on this in the first quarter of next year, but obviously we've got our hands full at the moment with Bundy Ali and this new discovery at Ibernia, but we will start drilling on this in the first quarter of next year to follow up on those results and ultimately define a resource here. Then our 4th key project is an earlier stage project, the Tonga North project. So this covers the strike extent of the Centerfo Greenstone Belt between Barrick's Tongan operation, which is a 4 million ounce operation, the biggest operation or biggest discovery to date in Cote d'Ivoire, and then up to the Burkina Faso border. So we cover about 2,000 square kilometres of consolidated greenstone belt here. There's been a lot of geochemistry done here, which has defined a lot of targets in soil anomalies, but no drilling at all. So we'll have an auger rig here, which has already commenced, and that auger rig will just be drilling these soil anomalies non-stop for the next 12 months, and that'll be ticking along in the background whilst we do our more advanced work on our other projects. So just in summary, a very large position, in fact, the largest position in Cote d'Ivoire, which is a place we're very comfortable operating in, have very strong relationships. The team has success and understands the geology of West Africa very well. But importantly, we have what we consider to be the best land in Cote d'Ivoire, and it's been demonstrated by drilling results with 2 discoveries already and possibly a 3rd discovery. And we're now very well funded with over $15 million in the bank to continue to drill these discoveries out and to find standalone resource projects, not just at one project, but across 2 or 3 projects. As I said, the management team has done this previously on a number of occasions and delivered significant shareholder value for our shareholders. So thanks for coming to the presentation. We have a booth out there and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Before I introduce our next presenter, just a reminder to you that you have a chance to win a 35-liter Yeti Esky filled to the brim with Spinifex Brewing Company beers. It's out there at their booth. And if you scan the QR code, you have a chance to win that Esky. All right. So that's a good prize to win. Alto Metals is advancing the historic Sandstone Gold Project located in the East Murchison here in WA. To tell the Alto story and share some of the recent results, we welcome Managing Director Matthew Bowles. Matthew.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. It's great to be here at the RIU Resurgence Conference again. And thanks to Vertical Events for inviting us to share the Alto story. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Alto. We've had a really big year this year. We've been drilling over 60,000 metres. We're continuing to get a lot of results in from that, and we can see that leading through to resource growth and further discoveries. And I want to walk through why we see the Sandstone Greenstone Belt and this historic gold district as an amazing prospect to be at. So just the disclaimer for you to read at your own time. So I said we're a WA-based advanced gold explorer. Sandstone Gold Project covers 900 square kilometres of the Sandstone Greenstone Belt. So it's a dominant position in Western Australia. We're surrounded by a number of multi-million ounce mines and deposits. The infrastructure there is fantastic. And from what we've seen to date, Sandstone's had over, it's already produced over 1 million ounces of gold. Most of that was really focused on near surface oxide. We're drilling a little bit deeper and we're finding a lot more gold. The project itself, as I say, covers 900 square Ks. Most of the drilling has been less than 100 metres deep, and that's really what we're targeting. Our current resource sits at 331,000 ounces. That resource is open down plunge, down dip, and is only defined down to about 180 metres at the moment. So we can see a lot more growth coming there. We've got a resource update coming out in the first quarter of next year. We still have quite a few drilling results pending, and we can see that's going to continue to sort of grow that resource. We did some initial metallurgical work about 18 months ago. That's shown very simple CIL process for the recovery of that gold. So up to 98% recoveries was the maximum, averaging about 96%. So that was really encouraging for us at the moment. So no sort of metallurgical issues there. And as I said, really limited drilling, only down to about 100 metres. And most of that, the whole point of that was really, it was focused primarily on oxide ounces, and we're drilling that much deeper, and we're finding a lot more gold there. As I mentioned before, we've got about 80 assays still pending at the moment. Our turnaround's blown out to about 120 days, so we've been dealing with the labs with that, so it's pretty full on, but it's certainly nothing that the whole industry has been facing as well. We're well funded. We just completed a $7 million capital raising that was well oversubscribed. And that certainly sets us up well for next year. We've got a rig already booked to get back on site in February, and I know the guys are really keen to get back out there and sort of follow up on some of the great results we've had today. And for those of you that may have been following the Alto story for a little while, we have had some corporate interest, which has probably been going on for 18 months. It sort of seems to be one of the key things that people are focusing on, but we see that as a great endorsement as to what we have. It certainly stops us from doing quite a bit of drilling over the last 18 months. And I think I'll run through some of the results we've had, and you'll probably start to see why we've attracted so much corporate interest and why we're so focused on really hitting this hard and getting those results out. So the image you're looking at here, and we're focused on the property, we're focused in the southeast corner. And the reason for that is the previous owners were focused, as I said, on these oxide deposits. So as soon as they hit fresh rock, the mill that they had, it couldn't process the oxide material. So they'd sort of stop mining and move on to another prospect. We don't have that oxide mill, so our exploration strategy is driven by sort of finding gold. We've been drilling a little bit deeper, and it's a very simple sort of West Australian story. We're drilling deeper below pits to the south down plunge, and we're finding a lot more. It's so that Lord Nelson pit you see down there in the bottom left-hand corner, that was it's 500 metres long. It was mined down to 90 metres. As I said, as soon as you hit that fresh, they've stopped mining. We've drilled below that, and some of the great results we've had, a couple of results over sort of 40 metres at over 3 grams. Our best hit was Orion Lode, which is further to the south. That corridor is 3 kilometres long. It hosts another small mine, or small pit, sorry, at the other end of the corridor, which again was mined down to 40 metres. same sort of story. As soon as they hit the oxide, they stop mining. So we're really just chasing that plunge to the south there. As it's also open down dip, and we're getting some amazing results. I think that starts to demonstrate why we've had some of the interest that we've had. And for us, it's really about sort of just following it up really quickly. You can see that photo there. We had 3 rigs on site. So we had 2 RC rigs and 1 diamond. And we're planning on aggressively drilling it again this year as well. So as I said, the first rig's booked for February, and we're tossing up whether we're going to get a second RC or another diamond rig on there. But we're certainly going to be doing a lot of drilling between now and next year. So hopefully do more than 60,000 metres. And we've also, about a month ago, we announced discovery of Juno Lode, which it's 400 metres south of that pit. The discovery hole on that was sort of 13 metres at 5. So that was really exciting. There's no drilling around there at all. And that's on a full section, so that full line. Each of those came back with some fantastic holes, and that's certainly something that demonstrates that there's a number of multiple lodes, which is always what we've thought in that corridor. So we've got the geological model down pat, and it's really just about going and drilling it out now. Very quickly, on the corporate side, so as I mentioned, we raised some money. That was done in 2 tranches. There's the second tranche that should be settling just before Christmas. It's subject to shareholder approval. We have a number of directors participating, so my major shareholders participating for up to $1.5 million. So we should see that settle, as I said, in December. So that'll give us 528 million shares on issue. So around about 10 cents is where we're trading at the moment. So 53 million market cap, 7 in the bank, with a fairly compelling EV at about 46. You see there our share price is sort of, it's risen up. There's a big spike there, which is, we had a first takeover bid 18 months ago, which really put us on the radar, I think, of the general market. And we've leveraged off the back of that to really get the story out there a lot more. But we're still very, very tightly held. The top 20 hold over 60% of the stock, and they're very well supported. And the board, it's myself, Richard Monty, Terry Weller and Dr. Wong. So very strong skill set between technical and corporate. So we are located in a world-class gold district. So we're in the East Merchant of WA, as I said, surrounded by a number of operating mills. So we're certainly not stranded. So there's a number of options available to us when we get to that sort of that magic number about when we look to advance the project into studies and so forth. At the moment, we're focused on growing that resource and really pursuing a standalone strategy, and that's where we're going. But obviously, where we are located, it certainly gives us the ability to have a number of options available, and we're fully serviced through multiple sort of there's still roads running through the property and so forth. I'll just jump through. That's I can zoom in on the greenstone belt itself and just shows where we're focused in that southeast corner. This is probably one of my favourite slides in the deck. As I said, sort of sandstone's had mining activity since the early 1900s. It's already produced over 1 million ounces of gold. And this slide here, or the image on the left, shows the red dots is all the drilling that's ever been done over the property the entire time. And then the same image on the right is all the drilling that's been done on the property deeper than 100 metres. And so it's pretty amazing that a greenstone belt in WA really, I mean, that image just shows that the entire belt has not been tested. And our biggest challenge is there's multiple prospects on there to chase. Given we're a smaller explorer, you've only got limited funds. You've really got to, it's a bit like picking your favourite child. You've got to work out which prospect we're going to drill to begin with and then build the story up from there. And that's the reason we chose the Lords. I'll jump in. So this is the Lords corridor. It's a large granodiorite intrusion. It's pushed up between mafic and ultramafic rocks. And we're seeing most of the mineralisation. It's within the granodiorite on the eastern side. But on that contact between the ultramafic and the granodiorite is where we're certainly seeing that much higher grade gold. We've really only tested about the first kilometre of that granodiorite from Lord Nelson to the south. And we're getting some amazing hits. You can see there from the number of the high grade hits that we're getting. And really it's only down to about 200 metres at the moment. So it's mineralisation is plunging to the south. The way the granodiorite is structured, most of that high grades at the keel at the bottom of that granodiorite. As the granodiorite's going further to the south, it's getting a little bit deeper, but we're still chasing that shallow mineralisation at the moment. So very quickly, two just slide sections on that. So these are the 2 sections I mentioned before. They're drilled about 40 metres apart. So you've got a broad, the bottom left-hand side. So that's over 80 metres. So you're getting this very high grade at the top there, but the most of it's within that bottom part. So that was over 40 metres at 3.5. So really exciting. That was drilled down plunge of Lord Nelson. So and that's still open. So we've got some rigs coming back early next year to sort of follow up on that, and then certainly further to the south. And then I mentioned before Juno. So this, as I said, is 400 metres south of Lord Nelson. When these results came through, the geos are pretty excited. It just highlights that geological model is working. It's exactly the same. The contact on that between the granite and the ultramafic, and we're just seeing that high grade zone there. So it's really exciting for us. And we're looking forward to getting back out there and drilling both up dip and down dip of that to see the strike extent. So just looking at, this is Lord Nelson in a long section. And this is a great slide sort of just to highlight sort of where we see that potential at Lord Nelson. So as I said, sort of shows you the pit outline there that was mined down to 90 metres, the remnant resources. So that dashed line there is the low resource mineral boundary. So what that means is anything below that line is outside the current resource. At Lord Nelson, the resource is 109,000 ounces there. So you can see there's significant mineralisation that's outside that resource that we expect to would hopefully fall into a larger pit once we wrap some pit shells and so forth on that, and how much of that is going to sort of come into that new resource. You'll see Juno there, that's the first line. I'm not sure whether that's going to come into the resource, but we're certainly following up on that. And if it's not in this resource, it'll be out in the next one. And that mineralisation is still open to the south. So that's where we're quite excited to continue chasing that further. We have some EIS funding, which we're looking to use in the first or second quarter of next year. So to drill some deeper holes just to really see how this shapes up at depth. And so this is just a regional slide. We're calling it the alpha domain. So the thing that we've tried to focus is that Alto is a lot more than just a couple of lords. And so Vanguard, which is one of our unmined deposits. So Vanguard hosts 50,000 ounces at the moment. It's located about 5 kilometres to the west of Lord Nelson. And it's it's hosted within a 20-kilometre long trend, which has another deposit, which is the Indomitable deposit, which is about 70,000 ounces. Now, we haven't really looked at these that much until this year. We started drilling Vanguard. We've had some fantastic results out from Vanguard, a number of high-grade hits on that. And you can see why, for us, it's really been tantalising to get back in there and sort of drill some of these prospects. We've got, it's about 8,000 metres of drilling has been done at Indomitable. The Indomitable won't come into our new resource at the moment, so we're just going out there to see what that's like, and then that'll hopefully come into the following resource later on next year or the year after. So just a quick slide on Vanguard itself. You can see there, so Vanguard, it's defined currently over 1 kilometre, also 2 kilometres. There's 2 main trends there, and where we're seeing most of that high grade is within those linking structures. It's really early days for us, but there's a number of holes pending on that still. And once those holes are in, they're going to be sent through to our independent consultant who's working on the updated resource. So we should be able to get that out pretty soon. But it's quite excited for us to see this as our second project. And I wanted to talk about just the next slide. So we're calling this rediscovering sandstone. And the reason for that is, we've got 900 square kilometres of ground. We've been focused on a small prospect down in the southeast corner. And it's quite hard when you look at the number of prospects that we have. We certainly sort of don't need to go and acquire any more ground. And all of those targets there outside that alpha domain, their targets either through their historical mines or open pits, or they've got sort of historical drill results, which are really exceptional that need to be followed up. So the challenge has always been to prioritise those. And so one of the things that we are doing in the background, we've got a full technical team that are reviewing all of those and continually ranking them and identifying which prospects we want to go and drill. We certainly don't want to get distracted. The focus is on that Lord's Corridor and Vanguard and Indomitable. We can see those growing considerably over the coming months. But I think you will see us starting to have a look at sort of whether it's at Bull China or Sandstone North, some of the other prospects that we have in there. So lots of ground, and I think that's probably why we've had that corporate interest. So for us, it's just really about sort of drilling it as aggressively and as quickly as possible, and adding more ounces and sort of getting some further great results out. So that's it in summary, sort of really. So we are well funded. Part of the reason for us was undertaking that capital raising now was that we didn't want to have that overhang, and I guess everyone expecting us to go and raise money once the resource comes out. So as I said, we've got a rig booked, an RC rig booked. We've already picked the targets. That'll be mobilised, starting drilling in early Feb. Hopefully the resource will be out in that March quarter, and we'll be back drilling, and then we're looking at getting a second rig on site as soon as we can. We've currently got over 80 holes still pending, and an aggressive program for the whole of next year. So that 331,000 ounces will grow considerably. We've got performance management hurdles at 500,000 ounces and 1 million ounces, so you can see the targets that we're chasing. I think that's where I'll leave it. Thank you.
Much.
If you've got any other questions, please come and see me at the booth.
Beautiful. Thank you. Maximus Resources are a gold and nickel explorer with several exciting projects centered around the historical high-grade Wattle Dam gold mine in Kambalda here in Western Australia. To tell us about Maximus Resources, we welcome Managing Director Tim Wither. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining. A special shout out to any Maximus and all Maximus shareholders that have joined us today. As mentioned, Maximus Resources, we're a growing gold and nickel exploration company focused in the Kambalda region. A great time to be exposed, having nickel exposure, nickel hitting, decade highs at the moment. This picture here, love this picture. This is the old Wattle Dam. It was mined by Ramelius. Produced 270,000 ounces, 8.4 tonnes of gold. In today's valuation, nearly $500 million worth of free cash came out of that. So small pit and small underground can be high worth. General disclaimers, it's uploaded on the ASX for you to read it later on. Quick corporate snapshot. 6 cents at the moment, market cap of 20 million. Raised recently, done a $12 million raise with Pantora coming in at 19.9% and taking up a board position. And I'm supported by Dr. Travis Murphy, who's a PhD structural geologist. Investment opportunity. We're located in 25 kilometres from Kambalda, located within 50 kilometres of 6 gold processing plants, all hungry for high-grade ore, 108 square kilometres of granted mining tenements, 136,000 ounces of gold to resources to build from, and $8 million of potential royalty income stream from advanced projects. Demonstrated discovery potential with having the high-grade Wattle Dam gold mine and historical nickel mines across the tenements. As mentioned, dual commodity with gold and nickel, and we have a large multi-target drill program currently underway. This is a slide for Wattle Dam. It was mined by Ramelius through to 2012, when afterwards they purchased Harmony Sil 50. These assets were transferred across to Tychean, and ultimately the assets were transferred across to Maximus, basically controlled by a group of guys. And so this projects have been in the family for quite some time. Mentioned 270,000 ounces that were produced. Note the high grade underground to just under 15 grams per tonne. Quite mined out shallows, 365 metres below surface, short strike length. When they originally went into mine it, they were originally targeting 15,000 ounces and now pulling 57,000 ounces out of the pit. Just to the west of the high-grade chute that Ramelius mined out is a carbonate quartz stockwork, and through the middle of the year, we produced a maiden resource estimate for there for 24,000, just under 24,000 ounces of gold. Some really great intersections through that resource. But the most important thing about this mineral resource estimate, we're a new team coming into this project. Building the mineral resource estimate gives us great understanding about the local geology. And more importantly, we had a discovery at the start of the year with S5, where we hit 32 metres at 3.2 grams per tonne, hitting very similar stockwork material, only 300 metres to the south of the Wattle Dam mine. So the greater Wattle Dam area, we have Redback, S5, which you see in the green, and Golden Orb. Originally, they were considered to be disjointed, but now we've considered that these are linking structures along two parallel shear zones. And that's the drilling through Ramelius and Tychean, too broadly spaced, and we were actually been able to demonstrate that it's been too broadly spaced with our discovery of S5 at the start of this year. This is another aerial photo of the project, and you can see the two shear zones, and Redback is only 600 metres from the Wattle Dam mine. So great infrastructure to build from, and we believe there's much larger mineralisation system interlinking. This is a long section of our the S5 golden orb trend. As you can see in the centred was our S5 discovery at the start of this year. Previous drilling was done at 20 metres. We had a discovery 3 metres at 83 grams at 25 metres, and then subsequently RC followed it up. So the red boxes are showing the outlines of our targeting for 2022. Redback underpins our exploration efforts for this year and for next year. It's 440,000 tonnes at just over 3 grams. The intent is to get the grade up higher. The differentiation between us and a lot of the other explorers around the area is our high grade. Most of the mills run at around 1.5 to 1.8. And so they're looking for higher grade material to offset some of the lower grade material. So our intent for our exploration at the moment is to lift up the grade for here. So during the year, we've had some spectacular intersections, eye-watering, 16 metres at 9.3 grams and 5.8 metres at just under 18 grams. Our deepest hole drilled into Redback at the moment is 6 metres at 9 grams. That's at 250 metres. At the top of the slide deck, I mentioned that Wattle Dam was only mined down to 365 metres. You can see Wattle Dam itself on the right-hand side of the slide there, and the black box is outlining the small underground stopes that were mined out. So when Taikin discovered Redback, they believed that they were sitting on Wattle Dam 2.0. We have the same strong belief about that. And we've been able to follow this high-grade shoot from 40 metres down to 250 metres. And recently just had some RC results at 7 metres at 7 grams at 37 metres below surface. So we're spending a lot of money and time on Redback at the moment, and we'll continue through for 2022. Mention dual commodity, nickel exposure as well. Previous ownership was Gold Focus, and this ground has hosted 2 previously high-grade nickel mines. And this is basically the top end of a quite a continuous string, or a string of pearls, basically, of nickel mines, all the way from Iceni through Martel, Mount Edwards, up to Andrew Shaft and 1A, which are on our tenements. We've got several priority nickel targets on our ground, with Hilditch West, where we've had some recent nickel intersections, 5 metres at 1.2 and 2 at 1.5. And our central, we've completed an EM survey with some priority targets, and 1A highway. As mentioned, previous focus was gold or nickel, and these that orange, the lighter yellow box you can see to the south of our tenements, they are all WMC gold rights. So these are ground that's been around since the 70s. This is a long section of that same string of nickel mines, all the way from Iceni on the left-hand side of the page, and those orange boxes are showing our exploration target areas. So Hilditch West, we were originally targeting a kilometre-long alteration zone, and we were targeting this fuscite. This at bottom right-hand side, you can see these quite bright green rocks. That's a nickel chrome alteration. It's up to 30 metres wide, and we've traced it all the way for a kilometre. So there's a gold in soil anomaly there, and further north along strike from our Hilditch gold resource. So we were intersecting this alteration to see what we had. end up with these 5 meters at 1.2 and 2 at 1.5% nickel. But interesting, we had quite high anomalous copper and also cobalt and scandium up higher in the hole. So we've been able to now, I guess, trace this alteration zone with quite great nickel intersections. Most southern ones, 20 meters at 0.9% nickel, all the way up to these intersections here. We recently did a diamond, we've put an EM over the top, did a diamond drill in through there. The conductor was sitting off to the east, so it's slightly offsetted. We found quite a lot of host ultramafic flows, so went through the right number of flows and hit metasediments and disseminated sulfides through there. So we've got a follow-up diamond drill program and RC program across our Hill Ditch West project prospect at the start of the year. Mentioned before, our other priority targets is Central. Central has got a large-scale EM just recently completed over it. We've got 2 targets, Sully and 2200 North. Now, these are just more conductor plates, but we actually ran this EM survey over the top of 1A, where we know there's nickel mineralisation still in situ, where we had a conductance of Siemens of around 8,000, 8,500. So we've sort of modelled, used that as our sort of lead indicator of the further ones. To the west of us, we had Andrew Shaft West, and that will just go straight into RC and no follow-up. So we'll be drilling at the moment. We're drilling at the moment at Redback, and we'll be including these 2 EM conductors at the start of the year. So strategic objectives for 2022, we've got a large-scale program underway. It's around 7,000 metres of diamond drilling. Continue to grow our gold resources. So we centre around gold, nickel being really our wild card. So Redback, Hill Ditch Gold, Eagles Nest and Larkinville. We've got 2 mining studies, development studies underway at Larkinville and Eagles Nest for near term. As mentioned, Pantoro take up 19.9%. So we've got a clear pathway into production, and they're only 100 k's down the road. So that's a quarter of a gram difference to take the ore down there. We'll be continuing with our nickel sulfide targets at Hill Ditch West Central Prospect and continuing expansion for tenement holdings for gold and base metals. So why Maximus? Great location. It's been locked up in the family since 2003. We've got a solid foundation of 136,000 ounces to build from. We just raised $12 million, so we're well funded and be able to do the exploration that this ground deserves. Demonstrated high-grade opportunities and discoveries with Wattle Dam and the other nickel mines, dual commodity exposure to both, and several exploration programs that are currently underway and that we're going to be doing in 2022. So thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you, Tim. Galena Mining is busy building an Abra lead silver mine in the Edmund Basin north of Meekatharra. Abra is a 60-40 joint venture between Galena and Toho Zinc and is expected to produce first concentrate in January of 2023. Experienced CEO Tony James will give us an update on how the mine build is going in what is fast becoming a new base metal mineral province in WA. Welcome, Tony.
Thanks, Jerry. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here to present to you. What chance promoting a lead mine? So good luck, Tony. But anyway, gold's a bit easier. But look, this is a really interesting project, and it's one that I've been involved with for a couple of years now, and we're very excited to get on and build it. So our strategy is let's get the Abra mine up and running and going, and then see what else we can find in the Edmund Basin as we go along. That's an aerial photo of the Abra mine site. We built the camp last year, and in the background you can see the ROM pad and the area where we're going to build the plant. So a bit of a show and tell today. I'm just going to show you quite a few photos of what we're actually doing on site because we're getting pretty busy. We've awarded about $300 million worth of contracts in the last 2 months, and we've sorted most of that out. So we're off to the races. First lead concentrate production is scheduled for January 2023. So next year's our build year. The next year is going to be pretty busy. Just like to recognise our traditional owners, the Ngunnawal Wajiri and the Ngarluma peoples, past, emerging and present. To understand this project, one of the important things to do is have a think about the joint venture. So it's a joint venture arrangement between Galena, which is an ASX listed company, and Toho Zinc. And the Toho Zinc connection is pretty important. It's pretty important to understand what they see in this project and why they got involved with this project. So they put in $90 million to acquire 40% of the project some years ago now. Disclaimer. So Toho Zinc's been around for a long time. It's a Japanese company, started in the 1930s. They had this originally a copper smelter in Chigurashima in Hiroshima, and that's on an island in Hiroshima Bay. It's wall-to-wall smelter. It's about 500 metres long and 100 metres wide. All the people come across on the ferry every day. Started off originally as a copper smelter. I think they converted it to a lead silver smelter in the 1950s. Toho is probably the biggest, Toho is the biggest lead producer in Japan, which accounts for about 2% of the world's lead production and uses. And they have some very interesting little side businesses that they also use with their lead. Things like the little lead buttons that go onto your wheels for wheel balancing. They've got a fair share of that market in Japan. So people haven't been able to find something to replace that yet. So that's still required. So pretty interesting company. They've been around for quite a long time. Great joint venture partner, technically very efficient, very proficient, very active, great group of people to work with, and they're very keen on this project. If you have a look on the right-hand side, you can see why they became interested in Abra's lead deposit, because we're going to produce a very, very clean concentrate. We're going to produce a 75% lead concentrate, and most typical concentrates around the world are between sort of 55 and 65% lead. And one of the key elements to this, we actually produce a low-grade silver in the concentrate. With lead concentrate, lead silver concentrate, you normally either have a low silver or a high silver. We're at the low end of the silver. But what is important is the bottom line of that table that shows you that we, from a deleterious elements point of view, if the best way to describe this is that we're 1/10 of most concentrates throughout the world in terms of arsenic, mercury, and those types of elements. And that's important for Toho, because what we're actually producing here is a blending product that they can blend with a lot of their other concentrates to help get those levels down. And it becomes important for a smelter because they have to get rid of those byproducts. And if they can get a really good concentrate, it's left stuff they have to stick on a barge, take it across to the mainland and get rid of it somehow. So that's one of the reasons why that they're very keen on our concentrate, because they can see, you know, a good 10 to 15 years of supply that really fits nicely into their business. Where is it? Where's the Abra mine? So this is really quite an interesting slide. You know, I'm calling it a new mine in a new mineral province in Western Australia. It sits in the Edmund Sedimentary Basin that sits between the Yilgarn to the south and the iron ore mines, the Capricorn, Oregon to the north. So it's a classic sedimentary basin, potable water underground. It's really interesting in terms of it's some sandstone and siltstones. It's a really interesting place for base metals. It really hasn't had, it's had a little bit of exploration work done on it. It's been around for quite a long time, this project. But in terms of a mine and people actually really fully understanding what we've got here, it's very, very young and a lot of work still needs to happen. So our strategy is develop the Abra lead silver mine. And then once we learn more about that, there's great opportunity within the region going forward. On the right-hand side is the Abra joint venture tenement package, which is 100 square kilometres of opportunity of tenements that sit around the Abra mine. Places like Jasmine, Bazaar, Genie and Sultan, stratigraphically and from a mineralogy point of view, very, very similar to Abra. From a drilling point of view and an exploration point of view, very, very few drill holes. And it's an area that we need to spend some time on going forward. There's no logical reason why these things can't be little replicas of Abra itself. Quite interestingly, everything in this area is quite deep. So everything's probably sub 230, 250 metres below the surface. And I think that's one of the challenges with exploration going forward. To the left of that sitting on the same quartzite well shear zone sort of fault structure is the Gilawara Project. The Gilawara Project is 100% owned by Galena. Now, what's really interesting about Gilawara, I think, is the Woodlands complex. It sits all the way over to the western end. It's a 10-metre wide by 8-metre anomaly, geophysical anomaly that what we call is Australian scale, because if you look at it on the map of Australia, you can actually see that red dot, it actually stands out, which is really quite interesting. We know not a lot about this, except there has been some drilling here that tells us that we do have copper, manganese, lead, silver, and gold in some of these areas that really needs to be followed up at some stage. We're not doing a lot of work at Gilawara. We actually have a drill out there at the moment, but we're not doing a lot of work this year because we're very focused on building Abra. So our strategy is to build Abra, learn from Abra, and then develop into some of these other areas. The copper chert area to the right, 14 metres at 1.1%, 13 at 0.9, very shallow holes. And I think that one of the issues with a lot of the exploration work that's been done in this area is a lot of the drilling is actually quite shallow. I think it sits stratigraphically above the sort of target horizon that we sort of need to be looking at. So we're probably at a very young age in terms of exploration, but I think from a province point of view, the knowledge and understanding that we're going to get by developing Abra, we can then take into this region over a very long time. You can actually see a base metals province actually opening up here in the Edmund Basin. What does that, looking closely at Abra, very, very large mineral resource, 34 million tonnes at 7.2% lead. It's a massive deposit. On the right-hand side is the mine plan that we're going with for development of this project. What we've done is that we've basically knocked that down to about 9 million tonnes in our first mine plan to go forward. What's interesting about that mine plan that you see on the right-hand side, there's a couple of metrics that I'd like to share with you from a mining engineer's perspective, which close to my heart that you may or may not understand. One is to get 1.2, 1.3 million tonnes per annum from this mine, we only have to mine 30 vertical metres per annum. And from a mining point of view, for those of you in the gold game that know, to get that sort of production rate, typically in WA, you might be up as high as 70 or 80 vertical metres per annum. 30 is a lot easier, I promise you. The other interesting metric that I'd share with you there is that if I take the decline out of this mine schedule, I could actually, if I didn't have to take it up to one decline, the ore, I could actually do 4.5 million tonnes from this mine a year. So it's a big resource, a big mine plan, and it's something that I think that we're going to be able to step into with our skills base that we have in Western Australian underground mining. We'll be able to do this mine quite easily. Really looking forward to getting stuck into that. So where are we right now? We're off. We started building financial investment decision in June, July. We have actually completed 26% of the build on spend. We're actually 95% of our major projects have locked away, contracts and work pieces are actually locked in. So basically, the only thing that we've just got to finalise our mining, our paste plant, and our surface infrastructure part 2. All the rest of the contracts are pretty well locked away and up and running and working. That's a picture of the camp, 180-person camp that we finished last year, and the box cut that we finished earlier this year. In terms of the mine, our first cut was on the 8th of October. Burn Cut are doing a great job with this mine. Very pleased with what they're doing on site. So far, we're a bit, I think to yesterday, we're actually 200 metres down from the portal. We've just come out of the transition zone and we're now gone into the fresh rock. So we've gone from a full ground support regime into a pretty standard bolt and mesh regime. So the decline's off and racing. Pretty standard decline, 1 in 7, 5.8 by 5.5 metres wide. Our target is to get to first ore on the 30th of November 2022. Remembering average 230 metres from the surface, so it's about 1,600 metres of decline that we're putting in to get to the ore body. In terms of the processing plant, that's just a render drawing of what the plant looks like, very basic, 3-stage crush, a ball mill, straight into a float circuit to produce a concentrate. Nothing unusual about that. It's a very basic process. This mineralisation floats beautifully. It floats very, very, very well. On the ground, what it looks like now, this is a photo from early on the 14th of November of the surface. And the insert photo just shows you we just started doing our first lot of civil work. So pretty much ROM pad, box cut at the back, ROM pad, crushing and screening, around through a fine ore bin, process grinding, flotation, concentrate shed, dams are in place, construction offices in place, power stations ready to go in. That's a boot arrangement with contract power, 10 megawatt power station, LNG solar. So at night time, it's all LNG, obviously, and during the day, it's 40% solar. So all of that contract's been locked away. That's a boot arrangement. Contract power will start pouring those slabs early in the new year. Pretty much the mining workshop, all the buildings are in place. Ended up buying some second-hand buildings so I could get my hands on pretty quickly because some of the new buildings were a bit slower to come with some of the issues. So we've been quite dynamic in changing some of the acquisition of some of the things that we've needed. And this is just, sorry, I mucked that up. Go back. This one here, it just shows you GR Engineering have started doing the foundations for the screen deck building. So we have to transport all our road base and all our concreting materials in from off-site. So we've already started doing that. That's coming down from Newman up to the north. So that's all progressing quite nicely. In terms of equipment supply, the Thunderbox, Northern Star at Thunderbox had this screen deck that happened to be exactly the same size as what we needed. And they changed their layout of their Thunderbox expansion. So I very quickly grabbed that screen, that product screen. So that's sitting in Perth, ready to go. That's a picture of the CITIC mill discharge head casting that's they're working on in China. That's progressing quite nicely. And then down to the bottom left is a picture of the LNG tanks, the cryogenic tanks that we need for the LNG that goes on site. So all of those things have been ordered, being built and getting ready to come. So in terms of the mill, the crushers, the mill and the flotation cells, we're looking May to August type timeframe for delivery to site for those things to come to site. Obviously, a risk at the moment is getting the stuff from overseas onto the site here in Perth, but with GR's help, we've certainly ordered these items very early, and we think that we've got a little bit of scope to get those on site pretty quickly. In terms of the things that we're doing at the moment, the airstrip's very important. We're building a large airstrip, 2,000 metres long, 6 metres wide. We've just about finished this airstrip. We've put the terminal building in place. Final course preparations actually going on here. So there's obviously some pretty strong QA, QC things that we have to put in place for the airstrip. And the whole purpose of the airstrip is so that we can land these Q400-8s, 76 passenger planes on this airstrip. At the moment, we're just flying 10-seater planes up there. We've got about 100 people on site. So we're doing about 6 flights a week up and down from Perth. This airstrip will enable us to step up to get this plane. So Cobham have got the contract to take the guys to site, and we'll be starting this towards the end of December in terms of flying people in and out of the site. So that's all progressing quite well. And I'd like to just leave you with a little bit of a lead thing. Why lead? This will be good. No, but it's one of the really interesting things is that quite often when people talk to me about EVs, they say, well, Tony, lead's gone, it's finished, right? The only thing you're going to be able to use lead for is your sinkers when you go fishing up at Exmouth. But that's not necessarily true, even though I've got to say the sharks are winning the lead fight at the moment. So maybe we can make some sinkers. But every commercial EV vehicle that's been sold to date still has a lead acid battery. And people may not realise that, which is actually really quite interesting. What lead acid batteries do in EVs is provide the control and the technology logic that stabilises the whole technical operation of the vehicle. So they haven't got their way around that technically. But at the end of the day, there's 400 million lead acid car batteries produced every year in the world. It's a significant amount of batteries. 50% of that lead comes from recycling and 50% comes from new lead concentrate. So it's actually really quite an interesting statistic. About 87% of refined lead is actually used in battery production throughout the world. So we don't think it's going away in a hurry, right? It's certainly going to be around for quite a while. And one of the really interesting things that I think is that when you look at some of the new growth areas for lead, the global 5G rollout absolutely requires lead acid batteries to provide the power and the stabilisation of that network throughout the world. And there's certainly some lead used in some of the new cells that have been produced for solar panels. So lead's around. I think leads will be around for a long time. If you look at the price is reasonably stable. If you look at some of the long-term forecasts by Wood Mackenzie, you can certainly see the thing being there for a while. So we're going to build this lead mine. We're just going to go and do it and open up this new mineral province. Thanks.
I was fascinated by that photograph of the underground chamber, if you like, or whatever. And I was just wondering, how many people here have never been underground in a mine like that? 3 or 4 of us, yeah. Me neither. One of these days. You're doing a fantastic job building that particular project. Well done, Tony. Okay, it's afternoon tea time, and we will be back at 4:15 for the final session of the day.
So there